Hello, and welcome to Talkin' Tales, where we share stories about our animal companions, their unique personalities, their zany antics, and the heartbreak of saying goodbye. I'm your host, Paul Barnett. This is the third and final episode, all about Skeeter. We start with the final set of excerpts from the Skeeter Memorial Zoom call that took place on February 23rd, 2025. Then we will wrap up with some comments written by longtime followers of Skeeter and some final thoughts. And because the mass on his shoulder wasn't shrinking, we decided let's while he's under for the dental, let's get that mass off. Um, and that turned out that was the day that he passed. And Sorry, it's a little emotional for me. It was so sudden. I dropped him off 8:30, 9 o'clock that morning because he was going to spend the day at the clinic for the dental mass removal. And I knew, standard procedures. I would pick him up, by about 5 o'clock that evening. And from past history with other ferrets, normally mid-afternoon I get a call from the clinic, and they tell me like, okay, the procedure's done. They're waking up. They're eating and whatnot, and they'll be fully ready to go home in a couple hours. And my phone rang. I don't recall the exact time, but I want to say it was around 2 o'clock or so in the afternoon, and it was Dr. Carter. And I'm expecting the you know procedures complete, and Skeeter's waking up, and he'll be ready to go home. And she said, "I'm afraid I don't have good news." And for me, I'm thinking, okay, oh, what is it? You had to do a tooth extraction, or you found some indication that we need to start him on a new medication, or something like that. And the next words came out of her mouth. It just, I couldn't believe what I was hearing when, she was relaying the story as I recall. And Dr. Carter, please correct me if I get this wrong, but that uh, the procedure, that the dental had been complete and the mask had been removed, and stitches were put in, and he was waking up from his anesthetic when his heart rate suddenly dropped. And even at that point, the positive part of me says, "Oh, okay, now you're about to tell me." So we had a little scare, but she stabilized him and everything was fine. And then she continued that she fought and she tried and she couldn't get him back. And now I've fallen apart before with pretty much every ferret. There've been a few where I know that it's coming. There've been many surprises, many shocks, but this one was so completely unexpected. Um, I lost it, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was some alternate reality, some bad dream, nightmare, really. And so that is the day that my world forever changed. And I guess, Dr. Carter, I'm sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot here. I think you probably knew I was going to ask him around this, but can you speak to that? Did I describe that correctly, as far as what happened there? I mean, it's kind of a blur to me just because it was so unexpected.
Yeah, no, you described it exactly, and I mean, we anesthetize elderly and sensitive ferrets all the time. We have a really we have a lot of confidence in our anesthetic protocol, and Skeeter didn't have any pre-anesthetic concerns. He was already on good cardiac support with that Optomega supplement, and his heart rate had been normal. So we had no qualms about going in for anesthetic for what should have been just a routine dental and mass removal. Neither of the procedures took particularly long. They were all pretty much textbook. And yeah, so it was super unexpected when, as we were finishing up, all of a sudden his heart rate plummeted. And so, we are very well versed in our emergency procedures. We got our emergency drugs out, gave it to him, and for whatever reason, he did not respond. His heart rate never came back up, and just continued to plummet until his heart stopped. And all I can, all I could think at the time was that somehow there was some, I don't know if there was some sort of scarring or something from his past that was catching up with him. That somehow his heart wasn't as strong as we had thought it was, or something. But that we really had no explanation for why he just suddenly left us, and it was heartbreaking and devastating for everybody involved.
Yeah. That of all the things that might have happened that day, that the thought of that happening never crossed my mind. And I think part of that, well, there's two reasons for that. One, because I just want to make this super clear, Dr. Carter, you are absolutely an amazing vet. I trust you completely with all of my ferrets. Heck, I think I've asked you a time or two just for advice on dogs and cats, even though you don't see them in your practice these days. Um, yeah, I trust your experience and your knowledge, and you've always been very helpful. Um, so just the fact that I knew he was in good hands, he was in the right hands. You know, I had no fears or concerns for that day. But the other thing was, and this is where I want to sort of wrap things up on a happy note, which is that he was it is to me forever young. You know, it- so he passed on October 21st. November 1st is the day that would have been his, on my calendar, his sixth birthday. And he might have been a few months older than that. We don't know exactly. Um, but he didn't act his age. He his energy level, his enthusiasm during playtime was the same the night before he passed as it was the day he came home. Um, and in fact, the slideshow is playing in random order, but uh, what I actually will do here is take a moment. I'm going to stop sharing that version of the slideshow. Um, I'm going to switch over to a different one, just because I want to show. Okay. Um, So these photos that are showing right now on the slideshow, these are the last photos of Skeeter in October. Um, let's see. Let's end of back to school ones. So he's playing with his canine brother Sam, posing as he often did, playing with Pepper. Oh, there's a couple here that didn't. Looks like maybe they didn't make it into the slideshow. But the very last picture of him that I have is from the night before he passed. He was playing in the ball pit with several of his siblings. And by this point, the ball pit, so I started to say earlier, the ball pit's morphed a few times over the years. And the latest incarnation started, uh, in mid 2024, because I had a bunch of remodeling done in my house. And I decided to freshen some of the ferret toys. And I got rid of the storage container ball pits, and I got it's basically an indoor kids pool. It's vinyl, very easy to keep clean, can fold up, very lightweight, but also, because it's vinyl, no one's claws are getting caught on it. No one can really tear it apart. I should say vinyl with cardboard reinforcements holding up the sides. And um, it's about 3 or 4 times larger than the two ball pits they had before. And so I got hundreds of plastic balls, multicolored balls, some clear ones to put in there. And I was able to run multiple tubes into it, so they had multiple ways in and out of it. And he was in there swimming around, burrowing under the balls, bouncing them around, standing up on the side of the ball pit. I think he climbed out of it over the side instead of going through a tube, which I say is the hard way of getting in and out. But uh, he had lots of energy. There was no sign that he was slowing down. Um, and I mentioned this earlier, but I'll say it again, which is that I guess one of the, you know, I don't want to say nice things, but I guess one of the things I guess to be somewhat thankful for is that we didn't see him decline. Um, there was no increasing of medications. There was no watching him grow frail and slow down and whatnot. That just, certainly I wouldn't have minded that. That's just that's how life works. Uh, but there's the heartbreak of that, by itself of seeing these once vivacious creatures slow down and grow old and eventually pass. And we didn't experience that with Skeeter. Um, you know, so I guess there's an element of being thankful for that. But again, up until the night before, he was as energetic as the day that he came home. So I'm thankful for that. Um, and as the playtime fun coordinator, he changed playtime for his siblings, forever. And I could tell because that first night and many nights after without him, the atmosphere is not different. I think Terry, when you're going to talk separately, you put a good word on it, which is the dynamic change. Um, his siblings still have fun. They still play. They still run around. They still play in the ball pit. They still run through the tubes, but it's different. Um, and I, you know, I guess I could say Skeeter to some extent was the glue that pulled them all together. They rallied around him, um, and now they sort of again they still play, but it's a little more segmented because you don't have Skeeter pulling them together, uh, and so that is one of the things that I will miss most about him. Um, the other thing is, and I apologize, if, uh, getting a bit worked up here. One of the things that he reminded me of every day was to be forgiving and to put the past behind you. Um, yeah, I think Terry, you spoke to this, and Dr. Carter, you spoke to this earlier as well. But yeah, for all that he went through, I got to see every day he was happy. He was so full of life. He was so playful. I never saw any indication of a ferret who had been abused, a ferret who was unhappy, a ferret who had been through trauma. He was the embodiment of love. He was a reminder of joy. And I am so thankful that I got to experience that. He, tiny little creature taught me an important lesson and reminded me of that. And so, uh, uh, you know, that's one of the reasons, to this day, I continue to update the Discord every day with pictures of Skeeter. I'm now doing it using pictures from his past on this day. For example, today I posted pictures from this day in 2021 of him, sleeping and cuddling. And I will do that until I run out of pictures of Skeeter. And even then, I might recycle some of the ones from previous years. Um, uh, because just seeing him play, seeing him have fun, it's just, that reminder of him and his spirit and that lesson of being forgiving and not letting all those negative things change you. Um, and that is why, for as long as I can, I will keep going with this new podcast, The Adventures of Skeeter, because he had so many interactions with his siblings. Um, and I want to be able to share those as best I can with anyone who will listen. Um, so with that, um, Again, I want to thank everyone who joined today to talk about Skeeter, and I want to just open it up for anyone who has any questions about Skeeter, about me, or for anyone in the conversation who just wants to talk about Skeeter. Um, now is your chance.
Well,
Hey,
Paul,
Paul,
I can say this that I'm so glad that I met you through Skeeter, and I'm so glad that we've had the opportunity to follow along with him. I'm apologizing, but I have a barn full of animals that's waiting on chow, so I'm going to sneak out at this point, but I will
Understood.
absolutely be in touch so we can collaborate on some AFR stuff.
Sounds good. Thank you,
And
Robin.
thank everybody for coming. It was really nice to hear all about it and from everyone.
Good to meet you, Robin.
Thank you so much.
bye,
Thank you,
Robin.
Robin.
Bye.
Hey, Paul, I just wanted to mention too, and especially while Holly's still on, it's been 6 years now since all of this, happened. And I feel the last few years I've been kind of on the outside looking in. And it feels to me like Skeeter went through three different stages of his life. I got him when he was going through the worst of the worst. And it wasn't until he spent a lot of time in Holly's office that I felt he really started to change. And you could see how he was progressing. And with all the people, it's Holly's office is like a warm, and I know you can probably speak to this. It's like a warm, friendly, casual atmosphere. The people that filter in and out. And Skeeter, even though he went through some hard times there, having his, the bandages and the medications and all of the things that he had to go through when he was there to heal, he also had a lot of interaction with so many different people who were so gentle and loving. And I really believe that in and of itself, just the time that he spent there with so many different people and being held by so many different people, and the positive, loving environment really helped do a lot of the healing. And the third stage would be when he finally ended up at home with you, and that's where you maybe didn't see a lot of the things that I did early on, being terrified of shoes and that kind of thing, because I really felt that he made that transformation as he was going through those several weeks of healing and in and out of the clinic, and all of the different people that touched him, held him, played with him. He tore through the hallways. It was just, I think it was a good time for him. I think it was really good for him.
Yes. And I want to just take a second and speak to when you said the atmosphere at Holly's clinic. Absolutely. It, it, I'm not going to tell the whole story here, but I want to share a quick thing, which is back in 2019, my ferret, Ace, Skeeter's big brother, had major surgery to remove half of his jaw. And that was done at another clinic with a surgeon who normally didn't see ferrets, but had agreed to take the case. And they were it was a larger clinic, and I took Ace for his appointment that day, but I didn't stay at that clinic to wait. I actually went to Dr. Carter's clinic because it felt much more welcoming there. The other clinic was very well clinical, for lack of a better term. Uh, uh,
Sterile would be a good word.
yes, there. Thank you. Yes, sterile. Very sterile environment. Very, I say rigidly run business. Like clients come in, you fill out the paperwork, you drop your pet off, you maybe wait in the waiting room, and then you get your pet and you leave. Uh, and there's certainly a place for that, which is great. Dr. Carter's clinic, it felt very welcoming, and so I left the clinic where I dropped Ace off and spent I think a couple hours at Dr. Carter's clinic in the waiting room there. And I just said, like, hey, put me to work. I think I, just helped assemble, medication bottles, just not medication, but just like trimming the bottle tops, um, uh, because it felt more welcoming than in the clinic. So, um, yeah, just your point there, absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to mention that I should have said earlier, was Skeeter was Skeeter's family were his friends. All of his siblings weren't just his siblings here; they were his friends. And so, some of you may have seen reference in some of the posts where I talk about his best friend and his best friend, because it wasn't just Skeeter and his sibling, or Skeeter and his brother or his sister. They were all friends. He had everyone was a friend. He had multiple best friends, and then his brother Ludo, who was just a little bit younger than him and he's still with me, was his best friend. Um, and so he was surrounded by love. So I just wanted to to mention that. But I also don't want to dominate the conversation. So thank you, Terry, for all of that. I don't know if anyone else has anything else they'd like to say or ask, or any particular memory or behavior of Skeeter that they, appreciated or just wanted to share. Um,
I just want to say, Terry, I remember meeting you when you were bringing Skeeter into the clinic at Kirkland. And I too was a bit taken aback by how receptive he was to meeting other humans at that point in time. And I think that was definitely one thing that stuck with me. And to you, Paul, I want to tell you thank you for continuing to share Skeeter with us, um, because he is joy. He is the Fert man embodiment of joy. And thank you for sharing him with us.
Absolutely.
I'm grateful too, Paul, that you've kept me in the loop, even though I'm not involved in ferrets or rescue boarding or, any aspect of ferrets at this point. And I really, really appreciate you keeping me in the loop and updated on everything that, what's going on with Skeeter while you had him.
Absolutely. And again, I'm so thankful that you chose me to be his human, that he sort of forever changed my world and my ferret family. Well, my animal family, because he had canine and feline siblings as well, and he interacted with them too. So uh, his his presence is greatly missed by all of us. But his interactions it was priceless, seeing him here. So absolutely, when there were any major updates on him, you were the first person I thought of because you brought him into my life.
Well, there were a lot of applicants, believe me. A lot of people wanted that guy.
And
But
that
I don't
surprised
I
me.
don't look back. You were the best choice, and I never looked back, never regretted it.
It surprised me. It didn't surprise me that there were a lot of applicants. What surprised me was that I was chosen, because I was intentionally not pushing, because what was going through my mind is he's he's going through all this right now. He needs time to heal and recover, and you folks, you and Dr. Carter, who were taking care of him, need to focus on his care, not on me badgering you to consider me or approve me for adopting him. And so when I heard that I had been chosen, I'm like, one of my fears is that I didn't push hard enough. But I also didn't want to push hard because that wasn't the focus. The focus was getting him healed. So yeah, definitely grateful for how that all worked
Well,
out.
after everything that he had gone through, I wanted to make sure that the rest of his life was going to be a good one. And I really vetted a lot of people. I asked a lot of questions and really talked to several people to make sure that Skeeter went to the right home. And you were it.
And I will forever be grateful.
Well, I wish you could have had him for longer, Paul. I know that was real hard on you.
Yeah, if I had control, they would never get sick and never die. And I guess that's I don't want to keep going back to the podcast, but that's one of the things for the new podcast is that nobody gets sick and nobody dies, which is why in there Skeeter interacts with siblings he never met because they passed in real life years before he was even born. Um, so in fact, in one of the latest episodes where he interacts with his sister Zoe passed in 2015. So they never met. But in that world, no one gets sick and no one dies. I just I wish I had that kind of control in the real world. um, uh, but yeah, I definitely again thank you all for taking time out of your day to talk about Skeeter and please, if you haven't, you listen to The Adventures of Skeeter. It's free. It's on all the podcast platforms. Um, and I hope to be able to continue his story there. There were so many interactions we had with his siblings that there are many, many, many stories to tell. So, uh, again, thank you all for coming. And that concludes the Skeeter Memorial Zoom call. We now have a couple of comments shared by some longtime followers of Skeeter. Mary from the United States says, Skeeter, you taught me to really love wiggles and squiggles and sliding limp noodles, and even piles of them. You were the best. Sherry says, my dear Master Skeeter, where do I begin? Such a precious guy, abused and harmed in such a cruel way. Yet you remained so loving with those bright button eyes. You healed and went to your loving home. Paul shared your many antics as well as the love you shared with your siblings, plus everything you did for your soupies. I so miss you. I'm thankful for Paul continuing your sweet memories, as well as seeing your siblings. Thank you for allowing me to know you. Thank you, Mary and Sherry. I have one update to share on the Zoom call. In the latter portion of the call, I referenced Skeeter's best friend and slightly younger brother Ludo, and mentioned he was still with me. While that was true at the time, on April 2nd, 2025, Ludo passed in his sleep at the age of 6. A future episode of this podcast will cover Ludo's story. I also invite all listeners of this podcast to listen to The Adventures of Skeeter, which is available as a separate podcast. The Adventures of Skeeter is a fun, fictionalized series based on real stories from Skeeter's life, done as an old-time radio show with sound effects, humor, and a fake ad at the start of every episode where Skeeter or one of his siblings is advertising a ferret-related product or service inspired by their actual behaviors and obsessions. You can find The Adventures of Skeeter on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and more. Just search for The Adventures of Skeeter. If you'd like to share a story about a special pet, visit us at talkandtalespodcast.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/talkandtales. Stories are pre-recorded, so you don't have to worry about being live on the air. And if you prefer to write your story, I'm happy to read it for you. Again, please get in touch via talkandtalespodcast.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/talkandtales. That's TALKINTAILS. If you run a rescue or shelter, or know someone who does, please have them get in touch so we can feature them on an upcoming episode. If you'd like to support the show, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/talkingtales. No matter what podcast app you choose, Please take a moment to rate and review the show and share it with a friend. It helps us find new listeners, which means we can bring you more stories.